Welcome everyone to the September webinar for the TELedvisors network. We're part of ASCET. We're a community of practitioners for people working in the third space in adult education. So learning designers, education technologists, academic developers, that whole family. And obviously we take a wide interest in a range of things to do with education, learning, technology, which is why our focus today is universal design for learning. We've got a number of experts in the room who will be sort of speaking to ways that universal design for learning principles are actually being put into practice in various institutions. Kicking us off today, we have Amy Sjoberg and Anita Jones from University of the Sunshine Coast. And I'm going to hand over now.
Thank you so much, Colin. Welcome, everyone. And please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Some people have already said hello to colleagues they've come across on the screen. So it's great to see so many people here. And welcome as well to anyone watching this afterwards. I'm going to share my screen now with our presentation. Welcome to the presentation today. We've titled it, Weaving the Thread of UDL Throughout the Curriculum Tapestry. We are Anita Jones, my colleague, and Amy Sjoberg. We work in the Center for Support and Advancement of Learning and Teaching, or CSALT, at University of the Sunshine Coast. A few weeks ago, we made a presentation at the ADCET UDL Symposium, and I believe Kate Mitchell did as well. Maybe some of the other ones in the room have, I'm not sure. Soon thereafter, we had a little tap on the shoulder from Wendy Talio, and asking if we might want to present to the TELedvisors webinar. So here we are. This presentation combines an abbreviated version of what we delivered and then explores a bit further of where we're headed next in our UDL journey or tapestry.
Thanks, Amy. As you can see from my background, I'm representing the Sunshine Coast, and we have many beautiful lands here. I want to acknowledge that the traditional custodians of these lands on which we live, work and study, and pay our respects to local Indigenous elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their strength, resilience and capacity of all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. For reference, my screen background is Gari, sometimes known as Fraser Island. And if I get out of the way, you can have a look at it more closely. Thanks, Amy.
That's lovely. Thank you, Anita. We won't go a lot into UDL or what is Universal Design for Learning, because I'm sure most people in here know roughly what it is, but we'll just do one slide on that. And often we'll use the term UDL, so you're familiar with that, I'm sure. This slide shows an image and the definition of UDL, as in the UDL framework guides the design of instructional goals, assessment methods and materials that can be customized and adjusted to meet additional needs. This is divided into three key domains, allowing for multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression. Here's what we'll be talking about today. On this slide, you can see three key points: the past, present, and future. With the past, we'll summarize our recent presentation at the ADCET Symposium, starting with a brief overview of some projects which contain elements of UDL. We come on to the present, which is a UDL maturity model. And where are we now? And we'll be asking you where you are in the poll. As part of this project, we wanted to determine how far we had gone, and we couldn't find a rubric or a maturity model. So Anita went out and created a higher education version one for UDL. As we go through, you might consider your institution and where you are in the maturity model. And at the very end, we'll be doing a poll to see where everyone's at. And finally, we look at the future, which examines how we got to where we are and what's coming next in the UDL implementation at the university. So I'm going to just go through these slides explaining some of the projects that we've worked on over a number of years. So let's take a look at the elements that have built upon each other to get us to where we are today. The diagram on this page displays 6 projects and their timeframes. Beginning with the blended learning strategy in 2013, it aimed to enhance staff capability in delivering high-quality blended learning experiences, incorporating UDL principles and showing that some consistent practices were beginning to emerge. We move on to Blackboard Plus in 2015, which aimed to standardize course design, ensuring equitable access to content for students. This initiative consolidated course templates, revamped the user interface for accessibility, and used workshops and resources to support academic adoption. This marked the early stages of integration into professional development and standardization of processes. Following this, in 2016, the curriculum design principles were adopted by the university. These include learning-centered, standards-based, constructively aligned, and career and future-focused. These principles support UDL approaches and were embedded into curriculum templates and materials, paving the way to ensure that best practices are implemented. Then we come along to 2020. We all know what happened in that year. The Technology Enhanced Learning and Teaching, or TELT framework, empowered academics with a self or peer assessment tool, focusing on online learning standards and UDL principles, such as varied learning materials and assessment tasks. The framework became a foundation document for course quality, emphasizing UDL in enhancing learning materials, therefore advancing our standardized processes and embedding best practices. Moving forward, the exciting part. In 2021, we began Canvas implementation and moving away from Blackboard. Canvas promotes UDL by providing inbuilt accessibility features and multiple engagement options. In conjunction with Canvas, the Ally Accessibility Toolkit offers alternative formats for students and instructor feedback with accessibility reports. These digital tools have significantly improved accessibility awareness and compliance through consistent implementation across the organization. And most recently, advancing the Student Course Experience Project, ACEP. You've got to love these acronyms. The ACEP streamlined student experience by working in the background, from the learning design team to fine-tune course design and layout with a focus on accessibility. This baseline quality improvement project emphasizes UDL best practices, empowering academics to continue aligning materials with standards so they are implemented consistently. Okay, Anita.
Thanks, Amy. So the reason that we did the timeline really was to show the incremental growth of UDL at UniSC, and we are by no means finished. I'm sure this is a similar story to many of the university organisations that over the years, there's been a growing awareness of accessibility and UDL. And now our challenge is with even more diverse cohorts of students coming into the university, we really need to continue on this journey and of maturation as far as UDL goes. So as Amy mentioned, we were preparing our ADCET presentation and wanted a way to represent where we were in this journey and couldn't find a model. There may be one out there, so we have adapted this model. Where the University of the Sunshine Coast sits is around spanning the integrated and strategic bands here. So as Amy said during the timeline slide, we've incrementally improved the practice, and we're at a stage now where we want to be able to embed more professional development around UDL We do hear a lot of talk from academics about UDL and have for many years, but it's increasing. We can see that. And we know that we have, for instance, in our design team here, their whole program has looked at inclusive design practice. So it's really, it's continuing on, basically, gaining momentum. So Amy, would you like to go on to what's happening in the future around this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anita. Oh, get to my next slide. So where are we going next? We've got a few things in place and that we're working on embedding further. We're looking at integrating UDL at a bit more of an organizational level rather than ad hoc or individual. Also, further integrating the Ally Accessibility Toolkit. And finally, progressing professional development with a UDL micro-credential module for staff. And within this, we are looking at a support framework model. One initiative to enhance student experience and include a greater student voice has been working in the third space, as we are here, not only with academics, but also more closely with our student services, academic or disability advisors, to get on the same page and provide support for academics and students around accessibility. When we started looking into the space, we discovered that we didn't necessarily know the key pain points for students. We kind of knew from the academic side, and the advisors also needed a greater understanding of the tools that we had available for students to use. This draft support framework shows how we can all work together to provide support. And one of the key important things about this is accessibility is often pushed around like a hot potato or a hockey puck, we might say. It's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility. So by working together, we're kind of, moving everything forward in a win-win situation rather than passing it back and forth. One of the things we do for this is to share consistent messaging from between our department, Student Services and CSALT. When there's a workshop or a presentation at a faculty school meeting, we make sure that we're giving academics the same message. By doing this, we are progressing the institution's maturity by breaking down silos and becoming more strategic in our organization-wide approach. And at the same time, with the Ally Accessibility Toolkit, we're further integrated at UDL by using the toolkit and embedding it into professional learning. This makes it easier for academics to enhance their course materials with accessible content and for students to have multiple means of representation with the ability in the alternative formats to convert their content into a PDF or an MP3, even Braille and translation. So they've got a lot more options available to them. Those are some of the projects we are working on. And I'm going to pass it back to Anita to talk about the UDL micro-credential.
So the UDL micro-credential, I guess, is another way where we have grabbed an opportunity and thought, how can we improve UDL knowledge while we're executing another project? So we currently have the micro-credentials pilot project underway, and the opportunities there, obviously, to say, let's develop one called UDL and let's test internally within the university the delivery of a micro-credential for staff. So we're in the process of building a UDL micro-credential. We're using resources that we have from CAST and ADCET. So I reached out last year to both of those organisations and sought their permission to use their resources, which they have freely granted. And then it's a matter really of building that course with a front and back end that is contextualised for our university. And then that will be by the end of this year that we'll be able to deliver that to probably internally within our support department and then reaching out to the broader academic community.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Anita. Now we know why you've been so busy working away on that. I can't wait to see the results. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide, and this is actually our last formal slide of the presentation. So hopefully you've learned a few things about how we have woven the threads of UDL into our curriculum tapestry, and also considered your organization's experience. Now, let's be prepared to get interactive. We've got a short poll question for you to respond to. If you're on your web browser, you can just type in menti.com, enter this code 76674627. Or if you want to do it on your mobile device, you can scan the QR code. Now that will ask you where you feel that your organization is in the maturity model. And while you've got that opening, I'm actually going to go back to the slide that shows what those levels are so you can get a better idea. So we've got informal, emerging, integrated, strategic, and fully optimized. And you couldn't quite see before, I didn't have a marker there, but we've sort of put ourselves between integrated and strategic. We have a few elements of both. I think fully optimized is quite a aspirational goal for a lot of organizations, but not quite to that level yet. Just checking that everyone's been able to get onto the poll. All right, thank you. I'll leave that up for a moment. And I think if I change my screen, I'll probably go to the poll. Okay. No, I'm in the poll, but you are not. Hang on. Thank you, everyone. I will share the results of the poll, and then I will like to ask everyone, we can have a chat or any Q&A. So we've got a few in informal, quite a few in emerging, a few, some more in integrated, and one in strategic, and no one in fully optimized, which doesn't surprise me. And Anita, could I ask you briefly, how do you think this compares to when we did at ADCET? I can't remember specifically what people had said.
I think the ADCET audience was a little bit more in the integrated, as you might expect, I think, with that audience. But it's encouraging to see that people are on this journey. And I think emerging is great, and having communities of practice like this where you can share ideas on how you can incrementally improve UDL. And I really like Thomas Tobin's keynote where he said, just think about your +1, you know, what is your one thing that you can do towards the next step?
That's fabulous. And if anyone, I might put a link in the chat in a moment when I stop sharing of the ADCET link to Thomas Tobin and Cheryl Bergstoller, something, I can't remember her name, but both fantastic keynotes and definitely well worth your time. If you've only got an hour to look at a webinar, definitely worth your while. So, and a few more in the emerging. All right. And thanks, Kate, for putting a couple of things in the chat there. Do we have any questions from anyone? Oh, thanks, Kate.
I'd just like to reiterate what Kate was saying there too, that it can be based on interpretation. Perhaps my tendency is towards positivity. Maybe we're sitting a little bit further back than I put us.
All right, I'm just going to...
I've got a quick question. I was just curious about the, is it a tool that people can use to create alternative formats of content?
Yes, it is.
So the ally tool, yeah.
Yeah. So what these students are presented with, if you like, would you like me to explain it? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So it's a tool that was acquired by Blackboard, and it's available for both websites and integration into other learning management systems such as Canvas. Once it's implemented, you can implement it for one course or many. We chose to implement it for all courses because of the benefits to students immediately, but what we were careful to do is not put the pressure on academics to reach that kind of 100% accessibility. So we went more on promoting the student benefits. So the way that the alternative formats works is that each page within Canvas has an icon in the title, next to the title, which has the AF logo, alternative formats logo, and a download indicator. So they open up the dialog box and up pops all of the different types of representation for that particular content that they have on that page. And then it's a matter of them selecting what content they prefer and then downloading that content. We've seen quite high numbers of people with tagged PDFs. We have seen people downloading for Braille. We've seen audio. So it may be students who are high performance sports students who are using the audio files while they're exercising, for instance. So there are many students who are getting the benefit of alternative formats.
Okay, and are they generated automatically, or is it up to the academic to actually produce the extra content?
No, it's machine learning. So with that, this is what we do say to the academics, you know, there may still be some considerations around machine learning that they need to consider, you know, look at, but overall the benefits outweigh any of the machine learning issues.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, it's been a great tool, and we did have Anita had put together a graph of the uptake from that, which I didn't include in the slide, but definitely lots of students have been using it. And you know, we don't have any data, of course, who and why and how they use it, if they're just curious, or if it's some students using it for every single course, or maybe in one particular course, if they're using it a lot, you know, does that mean that the content needs adjusting so they don't have to use that format, or does that mean it's really good that they are using that, so it's been useful for them? But yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of uptake in students with that, and that's why we've been working with our student services colleagues as well to advise students that they can use that, which may be a simpler version than having to go out and get adaptive software or something like that for those who might have simpler needs.
Any other questions? Feel free to post something in the chat, or if you want to turn your microphone off, on. There's a teeny tiny thing in the chat. No, I think that's just an example.
I could share my screen if anyone wants to look at what it looks like. Yeah, okay. Please. I just opened Canvas while we were sitting there, so I'll share that. So this is just a dummy page in my own sandbox, and you can see this little tool here that says alternative formats. And I click once on there, and it comes up with all these options. Again, with anything, it's, you know, garbage in, garbage out. If it's not very well developed in the first place, it may not come out very nicely. But you can do an actual page and convert it into an audio or an EPUB, which is basically a PDF. And then if there's any individual document, now there's no documents on this page, but you can have it read out as well as another option. And then the other tool it has is for the academic staff, which, hang on, is not in this one. That shows them what items might need help in their course. So I'll just get that up for a moment. And as part of the ADCET presentation, I did learn something new, which is with PowerPoint slides. It's got the accessibility features built in as well. So that was really useful for me. I hadn't seen that before. So this tells you a 65%. Again, the rating is a bit different because some people are like, I want to get 100%, but it's not really about that. That just gives you an idea of, you know, if you're a bit low, that maybe needs some attention. And it shows you specific items. And then as you scroll down, it's saying a document that's scanned but doesn't have OCR is very difficult for students to read, of course. Image does not have a description, which is an alt text. And if you look over here, 118 in just this course. So this is the kind of information that's available to academics if we have this tool in their Canvas course. which is available to all of
point
them.
out one finding from the pilot that we did as well, that there was about 16, 17 academics in that pilot, and they did feel immediately the pressure of seeing a gauge like that with a percentage of accessibility on it, obviously all wanting to do the right thing and have 100%. Sometimes the environments themselves reserve things like heading 1 style, and it's almost impossible for them to get 100%. So we just caution them to say, don't feel judged by that meter. Make sure that you're thinking of your own content and prioritizing what it is that you have as key content that needs to have high accessibility scores, and don't feel judged by the machine.
And also, it is a machine that requires human interpretation. So there are some of the things even that come up and say, this is an issue. There's no known fix for this issue. It's like, oh, well, thanks for telling me. And also, yeah, if you try to do every single thing, it may, the resulting thing may look quite unusual or weird, but it gets the key items, you know, the alt text. One thing it doesn't pick up, unfortunately, is captions, which is a key thing. So depending on how they're uploaded, it may not pick up on that. So it is a tool, and it's been very useful. It's not the end all be all of accessibility, but it's definitely helped our university. And I'll stop sharing that. Thank you, Kate. And I think we're probably up to about time. So if anyone has any questions at the end, or put them in the chat, if we have a moment, we can address them. Well, thank you very much, Anita.
Thank you so much, Amy and Anita. If everyone like to show their appreciation.